Alright, in today's technique video, I'm going to show you how I like to bake my bread dough directly on a surface in my home oven. So this is a different technique than baking your bread in a closed pot and then in the oven. This is a technique where we're going to bake the dough just right on the baking surface exposed to the air in the oven. And I use this approach when I'm baking loaves that might be larger than would comfortably fit in my Dutch oven or my combo cooker. And I almost always use this approach when I'm baking an oval loaf or a batard. I can bake 2 loaves side by side in the oven in this way, and it really only takes a little bit more effort to steam the entire oven than a closed pot. And I find that my approach and my technique to doing this is a really effective one, and it's super effective for things like baguettes, which require a little bit extra steam. And this approach always results in bread that has a shiny golden crust, and it's really comparable to the results you would get from baking in a Dutch oven. So right at the start, I want to answer a question that I get really often with this approach, whether or not this method works in a gas and electric oven. So gas ovens typically have a large vent in the back. It's usually a hole with a fan inside, or even convection ovens have those in there. And I find that this approach works okay in that kind of oven. The steam tends to leak out of those ovens since they tend to vent a little bit more than an electric oven. So if you have an electric oven, this will absolutely work for you. That's what I use here. If you have a gas oven, it will probably work, but maybe marginally less effective than in an electric oven. Let's go over the equipment that you need to do this technique in your home oven. So the first and most important set of things is 2 baking pans or roasting pans. So these pans I have had for years. They're just stainless steel pans. In this one, I put in a bunch of culinary grade lava rocks, and the lava rocks I find help bring a little bit of retained heat to the oven. That way when you throw the ice onto this later, the ice quickly dissipates and steam is rapidly generated. You don't absolutely need lava rocks. You can leave the pan empty if you'd like, or you can use something like ceramic briquettes. These are things that a typical cook might use outside in a barbecue, and I just find that a little bit added heat retention into the oven helps that ice dissipate and steam to be generated very quickly. The other pan is another stainless steel pan. I would say this one's optional, but if you're baking bread and you really want maximal steam, especially for things like baguettes, I like to use this pan as well. What I do is I roll up a set of clean kitchen towels. I put them into the pan. What we'll do is after we load our dough, we'll pour boiling water over these towels, and the steam that's generated from these towels is more of a continuous steam that comes out during the beginning of the bake. In addition to the 2 roasting pans, you're also going to need a baking surface to bake your dough on top of. So I like to use a baking steel, but you could use any baking stone. Even a traditional pizza stone works great. And then in addition to that, you're also going to need a cup of ice. And I also have a kettle that I use to boil the water to pour over the towels. And then to transfer the dough after scoring, I like to use a pizza peel that's lined with parchment paper just to make sliding the dough in much easier. If you don't have a pizza peel, you can use an inverted baking sheet. So you might be asking whether or not 2 pans are really needed to sufficiently steam your home oven when baking. And I find that the pan that has the lava rocks, or you could leave it empty, that's preheated along with the oven, is what provides that initial blast of steam to kind of saturate the dough, the outside of the dough, and the oven chamber with steam at the beginning. So that pan is absolutely mandatory. You need at least that, and that's kind of the minimum that you need. If you're looking to add even more steam into your home oven, I like to add the second pan that's slid into the oven. That's the pan that I use 2 rolled up kitchen towels inside of. And those towels are drenched with boiling water, and I find that as that set of towels is baking during the beginning of when you're baking your bread, steam is continually extracted out of those towels and continues to kind of blanket the dough with additional steam, keep everything super moist inside. I like the approach of having the towels because you don't have to continually open your oven door to throw on more and more ice or to spray inside with a bottle. The towels kind of do all of that for you. But again, it's not mandatory. If you want to just go the minimum and the easiest route, you only need 1 pan that's preheated along with the oven. Okay, so now let's get down to the actual process for how I like to steam my home oven. I'm gonna walk you through every step, and it's only a few really. It's not very complicated. Once you do it once or twice, it's gonna become second nature and you'll be able to just steam your oven without a second thought. So the first step is to place your pan with lava rocks or your empty pan at the bottom of your oven, below whatever baking surface you have in there to bake your dough on top of. Preheat your oven to 450 degrees with the baking surface on top. I usually preheat for 30 to 45 minutes. It really depends on the thickness and the material of your baking surface. Some things like bacon seals require a little bit longer to preheat. I usually just go for 30 to 45 minutes for those. And if it's a thinner surface, you can probably get away with preheating for less time. Once you have your oven, baking surface, and that empty pan preheated, you can go ahead and boil 2 cups of water, roll up your kitchen towels and place them into your second roasting pan. Pour the water over the towels so that they're completely saturated and drenched with water. You'll notice the steam will start coming out of the towels, so you want to act a little quickly here and slide it into your preheated oven next to the roasting pan that has the lava rocks in it. Next, fill a cup of ice and place it next to your oven. We'll use that to throw into your pan with lava rocks or your empty pan right after we load the dough inside. Next, place a piece of parchment paper on top of a pizza peel. Gently dump out your dough onto the parchment paper. Score the dough, and while you have oven mitts on, open your oven door, slide in your dough onto the baking surface. Grab your cup of ice and pour the ice onto the pan that's been preheated on the right side, and quickly close your oven door. So now you have your pan with towels inside that's generating steam continuously. You have your pan that you just threw ice into in the oven, and it's doing the initial blast of steam into the oven. And you also have your bread dough on your baking surface starting to bake. Leave your dough inside to continue to bake for 20 minutes in the oven while steam is being generated. After your bread dough has been baking for 20 minutes, use oven mitts to remove the pan with your towels, and you can also remove the pan with the lava rocks or the empty pan that you threw ice into. You do want to be sure that you always remove that pan with the towels after the first 20 minutes of baking. Okay, after you removed your steaming pans, close the oven door and continue to bake your bread dough until it's super crunchy and crusty, and really whatever duration the type of bread you're baking requires and what's listed in the recipe that you're following. And that's really it for this home oven steaming technique. I love this because it lets you bake many different sized pieces of dough, different shapes, things that are kind of outside of the realm of a round closed pot. And I find that is really easy and you get amazing results at the end as well. Happy baking.